B'Tov Hashem, we are learning Chagiga Daf Ches. We left off on Daf Zayin, Amid Beis, 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid. We are in middle of this sugya that we started in the Mishnah regarding buying Shalmei Chagiga with already consecrated Meiser Sheni funds. And even though everyone subscribes to the rule that Kol Davar Shebechoiva Eino Ba Ela Min HaChulin, for some reason Beis Hillel says that some of the money you're using to buy the animal of Chagiga could come from Meiser Sheni money. We have to explain why is that. Before that, the Gemara is going to address why did Rebbe in the Mishnah focus on the first day of Pesach, when really our topic is not Pesach related, it's Regalim related, and that's going to bring us back to the sugya we had in Pesachim regarding another Chagiga that sometimes is brought on the 14th day of Nisan, as we'll explain in a moment, connected to the Karban Pesach. Now, we're going to have, throughout Shas, there is really a question when it comes to quality and quantity, kamus and echus. And this is something that the Rebbe really kochten. And the Rebbe strongly opined that kamus is machria echus. Because if you have to pick quantity and quality, the Rebbe held that even in quantity, there comes a point when there is so much quantity, it ups the quality. Really, that was connected to the ending of brachas, to Sinai and Oiker Harim. But we're gonna just share how some of the achronim understand a lot of our topics concerning adding money to the Chagiga from Meiser Sheni over the Chulin, connected, as we'll see beautifully, to the concept of whether Kamus is Machria or whether Echus is Machria. Chagiga Daf Ches will address in greater detail the mitzvah of V'samachta b'chagecha, and again, as we just spoke it out in the last class, V'samachta b'chagecha is not exclusive to eat sacrificial meat. It's a much broader obligation of having joy that we fulfill it by having sacrificial meat, but it includes a lot more than just eating the meat of kachim. When there's no yet temple, pre-third temple, we still are obligated and we can fulfill v'samachta b'chagecha, as we'll speak out different statements from Chazal. Now, on Daf Ches, we're going to learn another Mishnah that's going to speak about circumstances where a person is going to bring many karbanos chagiga. And even though we learned on Daf Zayin, we introduced this concept of Rabbi Yechanan and Reish Lakish, the concept of Bal Toisef. So just to reiterate, when we appeared on the first time, ideally on the first day of Yom Tiv, and you fulfilled your obligation of Oil and Chagiga, and then you're going to reappear, here is where you might have an issue that when you reappear, mitzvah, hara'oyin. How many times should you come to the temple? The more the better. You don't bring karbanos. If you were to bring a karban, according to Rabbi Yechanan, you're violating thou shalt not add. But when you bring the karbanos the first time, even though we learned in the first Mishnah a very small amount of money, even rabbinically, Beis Hillel says, the oila can even be worth only 1 ma'ah, a sixth of a dinar, a chagiga, a third of a dinar. But if you want, you can bring many oilos and many chagigas, as the Mishnah will describe. We're going to learn a little bit about if a person designated many animals and for whatever reason they didn't bring it the first time they appeared. Can they bring it tomorrow or not? We'll see what will be the issue and a lot more. Chevra, without any further ado, let's dive right into it. This is pure kachim. There's a special geschmack in our Gemara, and we're going to link ultimately the whole Daf Ches to the topic of learning Chitas and Rambam. What should someone do if they missed out a day? How do you compensate? Can you lechatchila miss out to compensate? This is going to be a very relevant topic to us as well. So 3 lines from the bottom of Daf Zayin Amud Beis. First of all, asks the Gemara, Maishna Chagigas Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach. Why did Rebbe, speaking about the question whether you can use Meiser Sheni money for Chagiga, why did he speak about Pesach? Chagiga is Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkos. Amar Rav Ashi, Rebbe is already hinting to another rule. By inference, Hakomash Malon, Chagigas Chamisha Asar in Halkap. In means yes. Yes means no here. That's classic in the Gemara. That only the Chagiga that you have to bring on the 15th, the Chagiga of Yom Tiv, yes, meaning don't bring it from Chulin. Has to be from, it must be from Chulin. Don't bring it from Meiser Sheni. But the Chagiga that you bring on the 14th, Loi, No means yes. No means this rule doesn't apply. You can bring it fully from Meiser Sheni money. So let's quickly recap. We learned in Pesachim a phenomenal thing. The mitzvah of Karban Pesach, the carbon that is brought, there's a catch over here. On one hand, it's the most limited carbon in the sense that we have to eat it up until midnight. Normally a shlamim you have 2 days and 1 night. Here you shecht it. You shecht it on Erev Pesach. You cannot eat it Erev Pesach. You can only eat it at night. And we know it's not just eating it. There's a whole mitzvah of Haggadah. Like today a Seder. That means by the time you begin eating the meal, you're already near midnight. And God says, you can't, now whether you can't eat it beyond midnight biblically or rabbinically, but even if it's only rabbinically, you can only eat it until midnight. Not only, so how do you do that? So you have to have many people counted on the carbon. And with all the pratim, prior to slaughtering it, so you have to know how to look at an animal and figure out, everyone has to have at least a kezayis. But let's get 50 people in our group. Very nice. So you're sure that when we're going to eat it, so many people are eating it, it's going to be fully consumed. There's a challenge. It's ideal to eat Karban Pesach al hasoiva. Al hasoiva means when you eat it, it should make you feel satisfied. We're not speaking about achila gasa, which is after you're satisfied. For people who nebach cannot help themselves and there's food, they eat it. That's not called eating. That's disgusting. That's no mitzvah. Especially if a person is very full and they feel not good by eating. But you should eat it till your satisfaction. But how do you do that? If you have so many people involved, you're only going to get a little piece. So as an option, you brought another Chagiga on the 14th. This is not connected to Yom Tov. Now the beauty is that this Chagiga, you don't have to finish by midnight. So you had 2 sacrifices in front of you on the Seder plate. You had the Chagiga of Yud Dalid, and then you had the Karban Pesach. And you would eat the Chagiga until you're almost satisfied, and then you would eat the Karban Pesach al hasoiva. Now it's not obligatory, meaning that if for whatever reason our group is a small number relative to the animal, but we know what we're doing, and we say no, everyone is just going to have the Pesach, and everyone is going to have 3 steaks, and we're going to get satisfied. That's okay. As long as you don't eat too much, you're good. But most people didn't do that. To make sure they finished the Pesach by midnight, they invited many people on the same animal. Everyone was only going to get the small amount, and they would bring a Chagiga. Now this Chagiga, that's what the Rebbe is hinting to, doesn't have to come from Chulin. Very much like V'samachta b'chagecha. There's no chiyuv. Really, if you remember, when we learned this in Pesachim, there's a whole machloikas, whether there's a chiyuv. Actually, we learned the machloikas Tanoim. Some Tanoim hold the Chagiga is like the Karban Pesach. Chagigas Yud Daled can only be eaten until midnight. You had of all those opinions. That's not our sugya. So let's read it inside. Alma Daf Ches on the top, that our Mishnah holds by making a statement which implies that the Chagiga that people opted to bring on the 14th could come from Meiser Sheni, Chagiga Sarba also lav doiraisa, because those who held in Pesachim Daf Ayin and in other places that you are obligated to bring a Chagiga on the 14th, and it's mamish like the Karban Pesach, we learned Shitas, it has to be from the same animal type, and you can only eat it until midnight, and you can't break its bones. All the dinim are the same. Well, if it's a chiyuv, then you got the same problem. Kol davar shebachayva eino ba ela min achulin. Rebbe doesn't subscribe to that. It's optional. Therefore, that's why he's emphasizing that the Chagiga of the first day of Pesach cannot come, according to Bishamai, at all from Meiser Sheni. But on the 14th it could. Okay, now let's understand the Machlokes proper. Omar Mar, the second line from the top, Beis Hillel holds that the Chagiga could come from Meiser, meaning Meiser Sheni. Guys, remember a klal. Whenever you learn in Gemara Meiser means Meiser Sheni. If we're speaking about Meiser Rishon, we're going to spell it out. If we're speaking about Meiser Behema, we're going to spell out Meiser Behema. This is the rule. Meiser Sheni. Amai, why will Beis Hillel allow it? Are we not saying Davar Shebechayvuhu, bringing a Chagiga is a obligation, right? As it is oilas re'iyah, v'chol davar shebechayva eino elam achulin. So the answer is clear. Ula gives the word. This word has to be unpackaged. The answer is, Beis Hillel doesn't mean you can buy the whole animal from Ma'aser Sheni money. No. Beis Hillel means betoifel. You're supplementing. If a minimum amount comes from chulin, and you want to add Ma'aser Sheni money, you are allowed to do that. But that has to be clarified, and let me tell you two ways of understanding supplements. And we already gave a heads up that on Amid Beis we're going to learn that even according to those who subscribe to the concept of Baal Toisef, that once you brought these obligations, don't come again and bring more. That's only if you already fulfilled your obligation on the first day. But on the first time you appear, you can bring many animals. And people that came with large families, they needed to bring a lot of korbanos, chagiga, for everyone to have a piece of the chagiga. So teifel can either mean that I'm using a minimum amount of chulin money. Now, what's the minimum amount? Let's use the logic. What did we learn in the first Mishnah? What does Beis Hillel hold? That the minimum amount of a korban should have the worth of 2 ma'ah. Okay, with 2 ma'ah I can buy a little shepsele. But can I know how to the family, the einaklacha here? So now, since I'm spending the minimum amount from chulin money, either I can add my sesheni money to buy a larger animal, so I'm supplementing it one animal, partially from funds of chulin, partially from my sesheni, but ula means to say teufel, one animal has to be fully chulin. If I want to add meat, bring another animal, bring another 2 animals, bring another 50 animals. The added animals can come from my sesheni money. Herst, and let's read it inside. So now there's a machlokes Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan in the statement of Ula. What does teufel mean? What could be supplemented? Chizkiya understands it means teuflin behema lebehema. One animal has to be purely chulin, and let's already connect the concept of echos versus kamos. I know that this one animal will be little, but the whole animal, the ganze behema, is going to be from chulin. Now, if you want to add animals, here is where Beis Hillel allows you to add the animals from Ma'aser Sheni funds. But they ain't teuflin mois lamois. But if you want to buy one larger animal, and you say, you know what, I could have bought a smaller animal. I would have spent the 2 ma. Let me go buy a bigger animal. So let me buy the bigger animal with 2 ma of chulin, and then another $50 for Ma'aser Sheni money. That we don't allow. In other words, we need one animal. The ganze animal has to be purely chulin. Rabbi Yochanan says no, the opposite. That teuflin mois lamois. Buying one animal itself can be bought partially from chulin money and partially from Ma'aser Sheni money. And if a person is bringing many animals, every one of these animals has to have in it some chulin money and then add Ma'aser Sheni money. But the ein teuflin behema lebehema. But to have an animal that is fully bought from Ma'aser Sheni, even if you are also bringing another animal that comes fully from chulin, that you're not allowed to do. And again, like this is the concept of kamos, whether kamos is machriya, whether quantity is most important, whether echos is more important. No, it's having a animal, even if it's small, but fully from chulin is something that Chizkiya doesn't need. Rabbi Yochanan holds the opposite. Rabbi Yochanan holds teuflin mois lamois. No. One animal itself can be bought from a mixture of chulin and Ma'aser Sheni money. As long as every animal has in it some chulin money, again the minimum will be the 2 ma'ah, then you can add Ma'aser Sheni money. But you can never have a full animal, the ein teuflin behema lebehema. You can never have a full animal that is bought from Ma'aser Sheni money. Chizkiya Rabbi Yochanan. Chevra, we're good on this? Amazing. Now, what we will see on Amid Beis is that Rab Sheshes holds that when Ula said teufel, he meant both. But right now, it's either or. So Chizkiya says that you can never supplement money. But Chizkiya needs the echos, l'chayra. He needs to have one animal that is fully And Rabbi Yochanan, no. Doesn't need to have one animal that's fully. He the opposite. He wants for every animal to have in it a little bit of chulin money. Every animal should have a little bit of chulin money. We have a brisa that appears to take the side and to be the base of Chizkiya. When it says in Parshas Re'eh regarding the karbanis that we bring on Yom Tov, that pasuk happens to be in the holiday of Shavuos. So the pasuk writes V'asisa Chag Shavuos L'Hashem Elokecha. Then the words are Misas Nidvas Yotcha. The word Misas means a tribute. The word Misas says the Chazal Melamed She'adam Mevi Chayvasim Min HaChulin. A tribute also means before your tribute it was unconsecrated. You're making a tribute. How do you know that you could supplement to the money? That's the brais over here. And Meiser Sheni money comes from the produce that we grew in our fields. Meiser Sheni money is money from God's blessings. So God writing in that parsha, Kasher Yivarechacha, is hinting that we can supplement to the money Meiser Sheni money. Mamish like Rabbi Yochanan. We can't bring an animal that's fully from Meiser Sheni, but we can bring, every animal can be part this and part that. Chizkiya, who holds mamish the opposite, also quoting the word misas. Misas means a tribute means that it's coming from chulin, from out of your pocket. That's why it's called a tribute, a misas. Beshama yoimrim yoim rishoin min chulin. Indeed, Yom Rishon means Shalmei Chagiga, like we learned in our Mishnah, has to be fully chulin. Bikan ve'elach, that means Simcha can come completely from Meiser Sheni. Beis Hillel says that Achila Rishoina min Achulin, the first Achila, right, which means the first animal of Shalmei Chagiga, which means that if you're bringing various karbanis, that's the way he's understanding it, various karbanis, all Shalmei Chagiga. The first of the animals has to be fully min Achulin. Bikan ve'elach min Meiser. Once you are adding to the Shalmei Chagiga, once you're adding to the Shalmei Chagiga, then you can add animals that are bought only from Meiser Sheni money. As long as you have one animal that's fully chulin money. Now, Ushar Kol Yemais HaPesach, or Sukkos. Here again, we're going back to the Shalmei Simcha, Adam Yosi Dechavasai, with even Meiser Behema, or as we learned in the Mishnah, or with a kohen with a Bechar, or a kohen with a Chazay and Shoik, because Shalmei Simcha means Biba Simcha, and if I'm having taka, obligatory sacrificial meat, but I'm having Simcha. Now, B'Yom Tov my Tamaloim. Here comes another question, and that is that since according to Beis Hillel, according to this understanding, Chevra, once you bring one animal of Chagiga that is bought fully from chulin money, if you are bringing 2 Chagigas or 10 Chagigas, you can bring many other animals. It's called Teuflin, right? Behema lebehema. You can bring other animals from Meiser Sheni money. So hold on, am I allowed to bring other animals from Meiser Behema? Why not? If you're telling me that once one animal is chulin, if I add to the Chagiga, I can add it from otherwise consecrated money, then why would I not be allowed also to add the additional animals, the Teuflin Behema lebehema, from Meiser Behema? And the Mishnah seems to imply not. Meiser Behema is only used for Simcha. Meiser Behema will not be used the first day. And indeed, you may not bring Meiser Behema the first day, not even as Teuflin. Why not? Amar Rav Ashi, because Dilma Asi la Asure b'Yom, because if you would be allowed to add to the Chagiga from Meiser Behema, you might end up separating this 10th animal on Yom Tov. And what will be the problem with that? V'iyeh efsher. La Aser b'Yom Tov, you may not separate the 10th Meiser Behema animal on Yom Tov. Farvas. Now we do know a rabbinic rule. There's a rabbinic rule. You can't be mekadosh an animal on Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? But here there's a biblical problem. What's the biblical problem? Is that mishum sikrasa, because you have to dye the animal with red dye. And dyeing the back of an animal is a biblical violation. So Chazal said that you may not separate Meiser Behema on Yom Tiv, which is why the Mishnah, and a person will say, no, I already separated before, but that's the Gezerah. If someone will bring a Meiser Behema, even though they already did it before, someone else might do it on Yom Tiv. Stam, I heard a great story that Rav Nachum Chernobyler had on his back a red mark, a big red mark. And he said that in his previous Gilgulim, in his first Gilgul, he was from the animals of Yaakov Avinu, and he was the Meiser Behema, and Yaakov Avinu painted his back of the Shepsele red, and that's why Begashmias in that Gilgul, imagine, he had upside red mark on his back. How great is that? Okay, says the Gemara, my mashma, how does this Brayso understand from the word misas, which means a tribute, that it means it's coming from Chulin? Where do we see that from in Scripture? Because it says in the Megillah, Vayosem HaMelech Achashverosh mas al haaretz, that he imposed taxes. When a government is imposing a tax, they want new money of yours. Think about it. You can't give money that you already need to give to the government as taxes to kill two birds with one stone. Halavai, but you can't do that. So just like when you are being masked from the government, it's a new tax means more of your money is being now taken by the government. When Hashem uses the word misas, he means money that prior to you giving it is completely unconsecrated funds. Okay, then the Mishnah said again more regarding the Shalmei Simcha, that Yisrael Yoitzin Yedei Chavasan, that we can fulfill our obligation of V'samachta b'chagecha by bringing karbanos that are in the category of Nadarim and Nadavis, karbanos that where you pledge throughout the year, karbanos that you are mechuyev to bring anyways. So what? But now that you brought it and now that you're eating the meat, you're doing the simcha. Tanan Rabbanan. Oh, so here's my question, Chavra. If a person's wife, you have an anniversary, you have a birthday, you are going to buy a gift to your wife anyways. Can you give that gift before Yom Tiv? That's really the topic. According to Gemara, you could, because I bistachsayvi mechuyev, okay, but you gave it over Yom Tiv. That's a good application. I'm not saying you should do that, and for all the women, you deserve to get 2 gifts and 10 gifts, 100%.
No, you have to add to it.
Why?
You have to add to it.
Why here you don't have to add? Danny, here you don't have to add. If I made so many vows throughout the year that I'm going to have to fulfill my vows, every day I'll have a new carbon, I don't have to bring any new carbon for v'samachta b'chagecha. I'm going to have sacrificial meat every day.
I think it's the typo. I think you got to do a little typo over here.
There's no typo here. All right, Danny's wife is listening. That maybe.
Taifel. That's the word that Ula used.
Huh?
You have to add. Taifel.
No, Danny. You're talking about Shalmei Chagiga. We moved on already. I'm talking about Shalmei Simcha. Shalmei Simcha, no teufel. Shalmei Simcha, no teufel. Buying jewelry for your wife is a chiyuv nowadays for Simcha, not from Chagiga. So I'm saying if a person is mechuyev to give his wife a gift anyways because of whatever, if you give it before Yom Tiv, can you fulfill your obligation? Yes, that's what we're learning. And it says in Parshas Re'eh, so from here we learn, these are the words, Tzvika, where are you? L'rabois kol minei simachos l'simcha. Clear. In other words, first of all, the simcha is an emotion. The Torah doesn't specify a specific path to get that simcha. Which why Chazal say that when there's no Beis Hamikdash, ein simcha ela b'basar u'b'yayin, not kachim, not sacrificial. And whether it's v'samachta b'chagecha, a chiyuv on the women, or whether we just had this a few daf ago, v'simachta b'chagecha, that isha baila misamcha, that a man is mechuyev to make his wife happy, the Gemara says not with meat and not with wine, but with a big day tzivayim and tachshitin. That's also v'samachta b'chagecha, because that's how you're going to be happy. A woman is going to wear a new garment, she's going to get new jewelry, she's going to be b'simcha. But mikan, and so no, since it's not specific to sacrificial meat, mikan omru chachamim, that Yisrael yoytzim midei chavasan, that I can fulfill my mitzvah of simcha by bringing a carbon that anyways I had to bring, but I'm eating the meat, so I'm feeling joy. Ben adarim v'nadavos, am I sebehema? And not only that, kohanim can fulfill their obligation with the chatas, which they're getting that meat anyway. The part of the chatas that goes to the kehanim, or the part of the meat from an asham that goes to the kehanim, or the animals that are a bechor animal that are not blemished, that a kohen is bringing as a carbon, as ideally he should when there's a Beis Hamikdash, and the chazay and the shoik that he gets from every carbon shlamim. So Yachol, you would think now that the Braisa says v'samachta b'chagecha is l'rabois, kol mini simacha is l'simcha. Oh, kol mini simacha is what happens if I'm going to have chicken, and I get joy from chicken, or if I have mincha, carbon mincha, nisht. No, because it says v'samachta b'chagecha. Now the emphasis now will be from the words chagiga. Here, chagiga, we just quoted this in last daf. By chagiga, by the Shalmei chagiga, it says lo yolin chelev chagi ad boichid. The Torah specifies details about the fats of the chagiga. From there we know that chagiga can only be an animal. So since it says v'samachta b'chagecha, chaps, chagecha, misha chagiga b'mehem, only an animal that is good for a chagiga, which is an animal, not a bird, not flour, that is to be used for simcha. Yatsu elu she'ein chagiga b'mehem. So there's a scriptural source. Rav Ashi says, I don't need a scriptural source. I can learn it from the word simcha. Simcha from chicken, there's no such a thing. Simcha from flour. Simcha means from meat without a chagecha. V'samachta yatsu elu v'samachta nafka. Learn it from the word v'samachta. Yatsu elu she'ein behem mishum simcha. How great is that? In other words, to be fully satisfied, to fully rejoice with eating is a pshita, according to Rav Ashi, is connected to meat. And if you think otherwise, zolst to wissen that das balabatam hepach das Torah. Simcha is meat. Only thing is that according to Rav Ashi, he doesn't even need the word chagiga. So what does he do with the word chagiga? Rav Ashi, hi bechagecha. It should say v'samachta. What's bechagecha? My avidlei? We already had this above. We're going back to Moed Katan. We're going back to you can engage, you can make a halachic engagement, but you can't make a wedding on Chol HaMoed. That the Amar Rav Daniel bar the humble Katina in the name of Rav minayin she'ei noisim nashim b'moed. From where do we know in Scripture that we may not do a marriage the nesuyin on Chol HaMoed, right? Moed Katan daf ches. If I remember correctly, we had 4 sources for that. This is just one of them. And the word chagecha comes to exclude v'loi be'ishtecha. And as we explained over there, that when you focus on one, automatically you disconnect from the other. That's the way God made all of us. Even people that think they can multi function or multi whatever the word is. No. So v'samachta b'chagecha, stay focused on the chag, and that's the I missed that, Yakir. All right, weiter. Good. So here we go. Weiter. Dinim and kachim. Mi sheyesh lo oichlin merubin. If a person has many dependents that came with him on Yom Tov to the Beis Hamikdash, and before we come to the Simcha, we're beginning with the Shalmei Chagiga. Says the Mishnah, and if unachasim mu'atim, but if his funds are relatively limited, and he has to decide one shlamim won't be enough because the shlamim has to be consumed, not like the Pesach until midnight, but it has to be consumed over 2 days. So he, maybe shlamim, he's going to bring many shlamims because he has many people. You got to bring many shlamims. And if he doesn't have enough money to bring more than the minimum amount of an oila, and again, according to Beis Hillel, he can buy an oila even by spending only 1 ma'ah, fine. Spend the lesser amount of money, only buy 1 oila, and use the other money, use your budget for the shlamim, because you have many people, and again, we want from them to eat over the next 2 days the carbon from Chagiga. What happens if nesachim merubim, if a person is blessed with wealth, they have a lot of money, but not that many people are going to be eating. That's what I meant to Pesach. So even though you don't have to eat it until midnight, but you have to eat the carbon over next 2 days. You don't have enough people in the family if you were to bring many karbanos. You don't want to bring the minimum oila. You know why? Because kibirchas Hashem aleikecha. Because God blessed you. You want to bring many oilos. And nachamal, even though we learned on Daf Zayin at the end that Rabbi Yochanan holds, once you did the oilas re'iyah properly once, then when you reappear, you don't bring more, but the once doesn't mean a little carbon. If you are wealthy, bring many oilos. Then indeed, maybe oilos merubais, spend the bulk of your money designated for these sacrifices on oilos, and only get shlamim muatim. Because you have to be careful. If you don't eat up the meat of a carbon chevra, then you're violating noiser. You have to, it's not stam, I want to be generous, you got to eat it. Zev zemot, if a person, God forbid, right now, is limited, so then that's what Beis Hillel was referring to in the first Mishnah, that ma'a kesev for the oila, and shtei kesev for the chagiga. And again, what David Homami asked, and that's such a small amount of money, like there's a minimum amount of money that people need. That's part of the mitzvah. Say you have a lot of money, and you have a lot of dependents. Two blessings. Because Ashiras the Hayom Yom, Jewish wealth is not golden houses. Jewish wealth is a big family. That's wealth. So zev zeh. So al zeh nemar ish kamatnas yodoi. Kebirchas Hashem aleikecha asher nasan lach, and bring as many oilos as you want, and bring as many shlamim that you can project won't come to noiser. Okay, beautiful Mishnah. Says the Gemara, shlamim merubim mehecha ma'aseh. In other words, if a person doesn't have money, mamish, no, modern Kedushin begins kasev minolan. I know in a different context. Halesle, what should he do? Hatnish ken geld. And he has a lot of people whom he has to feed. And everyone should have a part of the Chagiga. So there, Amar Rab Chizda, okay, everyone had some Meiser Sheni money. We paskin like Beis Hillel. What was the topic we learned in last daf, the second sugya, that even though the minimum amount of money of the Chagiga has to come in Achulin, but you can be toifel, you can add, supplement. So toifel umevi pargadol. Rab Chizda uses the case of you buying one animal, that's Rabbi Yochanan, remember? And the one animal, you have a little bit of money, spend the tumah, you spend the minimum amount, and then buy a large animal, which would suffice to give everyone in your family a little bit of the chagiga, and that money anyways you have with you for Ma'aser Sheni. Amalei Rab Sheshes, why are you speaking about supplementing Ma'aser Sheni money to chulin money and buying one large animal? Harei amru toiflin behema lebehema. Rab Sheshes is saying you could use two ma'ah to buy a exclusively chulin chagiga, and then you can use Ma'aser Sheni money to buy just another chagiga fully from Ma'aser Sheni. So the Gemara says, what was Rab Shesh's problem? So the Gemara clarifies, if you are, what was bothering Rab Sheshes that he made a comment on Rab Chizda? And really, we learned above, Machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah, now we're going to revisit it. So the Gemara says, if you will interpret the objection that Rab Sheshes had was, if he is taking that side and he holds that you may not buy one animal from a mixture of monies, so then he should have used the words that we had on Amud Aleph. He should have told him, Ein toiflin mois lemois. So Ella, the Gemara clarifies, this is what Rab Sheshes means to tell Rab Chizda. I agree with your option. Yes, you are allowed to supplement and add for one animal, not only using money from Chulin to buy a smaller one, but add Ma'aser Sheni money and buy one larger animal. Rab Sheshes is saying that I agree with both Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah. In other words, you have both options. El hachi amalei harei amru af toiflin behema lebehema. You are also allowed to supplement, not by adding to the money of one animal, but you can bring various animals, one only from Chulin and all the others from Ma'aser Sheni. In other words, Rab Sheshes holds you have both options. So the Gemara is pointing out, well, Oy Bazoi, not he subscribes to Chizkiya, nor he subscribes to Rabbi Yechanan. Now, why would that be a problem? I'll tell you why that might be a problem. Because on Amud Aleph, we learned two braises, if you remember. Tanya Kavasa de Rabbi Yechanan, Tanya Kavasi de Chizkiya, or whatever the Seder of the Gemara was first. Tanya Kavasi de Chizkiya, Tanya Kavasi de Rabbi Yechanan. Then the Gemara brought the braise first of Rabbi Yechanan. Now, these two braises, if the braises themselves only allow for one of the two options, then we have a problem with Rab Sheshes, because then he would be arguing with both braises. So are you going to tell me that the chitema that Rab Sheshes understands the argument only between Amoraim, but masniyasa loy pligi, but the braises don't subscribe to only either one or the other? The braises will allow for both. It doesn't appear that way. For Haktani, it says in the braisa that Achila Rashoina has to be fully menachulin, which Luchuura should mean that you don't have both options. It's either supplementing animals or only supplementing money, but not both. So the Gemara clarifies that Rab Sheshes understands the braisa, my Achila Rashoina, not that one animal has to fully come minachulin. It means that you can supplement, one animal should be bought from both chulin and from Meiser Sheni. But what was never spoken out inside, I know I repeated it, but that was from here, when you speak about supplementing it, okay, what is the minimum amount of money that has to come minachulin? That is what Rab Sheshes is being understanding the braisa. Since Beis Hillel holds that a chagiga animal has to have the value of 2 ma'ah, that's the minimum. In other words, shir demei achila rishoina. If you were only to buy the minimum amount of animal, how much must it be worth? 2 ma'ah. That has to come in achulin. And if you're supplementing it, the braisa, like Rab Sheshes, holds that you have an option of buying a larger animal and adding on top of the 2 ma'ah, putting in the same pot money from Meiser Sheni and buying again one animal, or either or. There's an either or option. Says the Gemara, Amar Ula. We're starting a new topic. Amar Ashlakish. Hifrish eser behemus l'chagigas. As we learned in the Mishnah, if a person has what we call oichlin merubin, that means God blessed you with a large family, you want for everyone to have the opportunity and the mitzvah to eat some of the shalmei chagiga, you got to buy. Again, here the buy is not one big animal, but you bought 10 animals. So the question is, if you only brought 5 on the first day, are you allowed to bring 5 on the second day? Says Reish Lakish, says Ulam Reish Lakish, Chayzeru Makriv Chamish B'Yom Tov Sheni, you can bring on the second day. What's the chiddush? What's the novelty? Again, Bal Toisif, says Rashi, don't say you're adding. You're not adding. You're not. Why am I not adding? Because from the outset, I designated 10 animals. I only brought 5 on the first day. I'll bring 5 on the second day. Now, by the way, there's a big advantage to doing that. What is the advantage? That since Shlomim, they have a expiration date, which is 2 days and 1 night. If I would have brought all 10 on the first day, then I would only have from this meat, day 1 of Yom Tov, day 2 of Yom Tov. Day 3 onwards, I would have to bring other korbanos. It can be from Choiva, but to do the Simcha. When I spread it out, so then I had 5 today, the 5 that I slaughter tomorrow has now another day in which I can eat it, in which I'll fulfill also the Simcha. I'm allowed to do that. Rabbi Yechanan says, no, Kivin Shepasak, you designated 10. You didn't bring the 10. You stopped after 5. Shuv Einoi Makrev, you no longer are allowed to bring. Now this sounds so similar to the machlekes we had on Daf Zayin. Because Rabbi Yechanan is more sensitive to Baal Toisef. Clarifies the Gemara, it's not the way it sounds. Amar Rabbi Abba, I want to tell you that here they are really not even arguing. Each side agrees with the other. Veloy pligi. Kan, when Rabbi Yechanan says that once you brought 5 on the first day, you may not bring the other 5. That's bistam, which means that when you designated the 10 animals, you didn't specify how you want to bring them. We're going to clarify this a little bit more in a moment. You bought them stam. You were magdish them stam. You brought 5 today, you can't bring 5 tomorrow. Kan, when a shlokish allows you to bring on the other day, that's b'mefarish. B'mefarish means that if when you brought the 10, you said, I am bringing this on the first day. You bought it to be brought on the first day. Something happened and you were unable to bring it. Since it was designated to be brought on the first day, now you can compensate by bringing it on the second. And a little bit more, and you'll chop it even clearer. Says the Gemara, what does it mean stam? When we said that everyone agrees that stam cannot be brought on the second day. If I didn't specify when I consecrated the animals that I'm going to bring it on the first day, I didn't say that. I brought it stam. And I brought all the 10 to the temple. I brought my animals to the temple. You know why I only brought 5? Because after they slaughtered the first 5, it became sunset. After sunset, or they brought a carbon tamid really, after a certain point you can't bring anymore. There wasn't enough time in the day. The Gemara says that even though you bought it stam, everyone will agree that you can bring the 5 on the other day. Because it's clear that deloy akrevinu, why was it not brought all 10 on the first day? Because the lekashahus bayom. Another detail. The elo, the leis lei oichlin. I designated 10 animals. I didn't bring all 10 on the first day because I was afraid when I begin to bring, someone told me, you're bringing 10 animals, very nice, you mean well, you want to bring a lot of gifts to God. But don't forget that it has to be eaten over 2 days. How many people are in your family? Will they be able to finish all of it? How many guests can you invite? So he stopped because he was afraid that he can't fully consume it. So here also, what we're getting to is one nakuda, that when I buy many animals for the Chagiga, as long as I had in mind initially to bring it all on the first day, if for external reasons I didn't, everyone agrees it can be brought throughout Yontif. On the second day, on the third day. The only problem of bringing a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow is only if lechatchila I decided to bring some of them tomorrow. That is where there's the problem. And indeed, loy tzricha, the case of stam is, I designated 10 animals. I didn't say I'm going to bring it on the first day. I didn't verbalize that. So we have to see from circumstances, why did I not bring all of them? If there was enough time on the first day to bring all of them. If I have such a large family that there is not an issue of me being worried that it's going to come to Noisad after 2 days. And yet I didn't bring it all on the first day. So we understand the parentheses that me de bekama loy akrivino. Why didn't he bring all 10 on the first day? Shma minot must be that he deliberately, he lachatchila decided, I'm not bringing all 10. Shayure shiyore, he left some today and some tomorrow. And that's not what God wants. Chagiga means that when you appear the first time, bring an oilam, bring a chagiga. And you can bring many animals. If you're bringing many animals, lechatchila, bring all of them. If you wanted to bring all of them, you designated to bring all of them, but something externally stopped you, then you can compensate. See, there's compensation and then there's lechatchila. Lechatchila, you can't divide the chagiga for 2 days. And as we have the psukim that Rashi brings, there's the word oisoi. Oisoi means the chagoisem oisoi. It's like in the singular. Celebrate with it. It doesn't mean you can bring more than one animal, but it has to be brought all together. And the Gemara says that this is really not an argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. They really agree to each other. Each one is speaking about another scenario. When Ravan came from the Holy Land to Bavel, and he further repeated and clarified the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, Amar, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hifrish eser behemis l'chagiga. If a person designated 10 animals for his chagiga, and Rabbi Yochanan appears to be saying the opposite here, and he only brought 5 on the first day, yes, he's allowed to bring 5 on the other day. No, it's Ravin quoted Rabbi Yochanan to say the opposite. And Kashan Adodi, how do you reconcile? It's a contradiction. Elalav Shmaminot must be that kan bestam, kan b'mefarish Shmamino. How great is this? And just to finish, Itmanami, we also learned Amar Rav Shemen Bar Abba, again in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Daf Tes, that Loi Shanu, that Rabbi Yochanan says that if you separated many animals for Chagiga, and you didn't bring all of them on the first day, that it's forbidden for you to bring the remainder on the next days. That's only Elo Shaloi Gomar, when you didn't finish. We'll see soon what that means. But if you finished, then Rabbi Yochanan will agree that you could. And what is the finishing? My Gomar. So Ilamer Gomar Kamanoisav. If finishing means you brought all of them on the first day and then there's nothing to talk about, then what do you have to bring on the second day? Elab, no. Shalai Gomar Hayoim. It was if the person, step number one, if when the person brought the animals, they said, I am sanctifying these 10 animals to be brought on the first day. Everyone agrees that if you did not end up bringing it all on the first day, you can make it up later. Even if you didn't explicitly say that you are going to bring them all on the first day. But circumstantial evidence, which means that you were bringing them, and then at some point they said in the Beis HaMikdash, no more, now we're going on to the Tamid of the afternoon, and Olah Hashleim, and that's it. So if Shaloi Gomar Hayoim, if the day did not stop, if you could have brought all 10, and you didn't, and you were not Mefaresh, here is where we say, why didn't you finish? Mistama, because Lechatchila, you had in mind to bring some tomorrow. That's not acceptable. The Chagoisam Oisoi. Avol Gomar Hayoim, but if something external stopped you from bringing all 10, which is similar to Mefaresh, then Rabbi Yochanan will agree that Choyzer Umakriv, that you are allowed to bring whatever you didn't bring the first day on the second day. I want to apply this to the many Limudim, like we have Rambam and Chitas. In other words, I got to learn today's Shir Chitas. What do I do if I didn't finish? If I didn't finish it, I should learn it tomorrow. There's payment, there's tashlumin. But you know what? You know when you say there's tashlumin, when you wanted to learn it today, when you attempted to learn it today, circumstances didn't allow you. That's tashlumin. But lachatchila, to take something that should have been done today and say, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do it tomorrow, sometimes that's not okay.
Who does that?
I don't know, Netanel. Some people say, I'll learn it tomorrow, leave me alone.
Well, 1 second, we're talking about 10 Chagigas, right?
Yes.
So why can't he lechatchila just split it up? And
So lechatchila, splitting it up, again, this is linked to the topic we had on Daf Zayin, but not the same. So Rashi holds that when it says by the Chagiga, v'chagoisem oisoi chag lashem, not oisom. So actually, without Torah Shebal Peh, you'll say v'chagoisem oisoi, Dani, means you can only bring one carbon. V'chagoisem oisoi. That we don't say. Oisoi doesn't mean that you can only bring one. You can bring as many as you want, as long as people are going to eat it. Oisoi means that carbon chagiga is a one-time thing. By the oilas re'iyah, machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, Daf Zayin. Whether you are allowed to bring another oilas re'iyah. Everyone holds you don't have to. By chagiga, it's a one-time carbon. The chiddush is that a one-time means you bring it when you appear. If you attempted to bring all of them and it didn't work out, then you can compensate, because then it's clear it's compensation. Compensation means this belongs to the first time you appeared. You didn't have time yesterday, so you're doing it today. You were afraid it's going to come to noise. There was an external reason. But lachatchila, to divide it, that you may not do. Atkan, got willing to be continued.